15, Glenn Seaton. We wait for the flag to go up shortly. The warm-up laps have been completed. And everything is just about set. 1 minute away from the start. There's Dick Johnson. Study of concentration in the Palmer Tube Mills Motorcraft Mustang, car number 17. And the front row, well, it's a turbo front row again with Robbie Francevic's teammate John Bauer and, of course, George Fury in car number 30. The second row, the start will be critical for Peter Brock in 05. Otherwise, you'll have to shuffle out
10 seconds
to Nissan Skylines. Only a few minutes away from the start. Round 5 of the National Touring Car Championship, the Motorcraft 100 from Wanneroo Park. Racing. Fury just leaves them behind him. He's off. Brock's after him. Bow picks up the pieces now on the inside as they head down to Castrol for the first time, but the Albury Farmer has taken over the lead. Bow gets into second. Brock goes around the outside. They all go through Castrol Loop and now work their way onto the back straight and towards the S's. Bow in second.
By Johnny Bow, and he was pretty lucky to retrieve second place.
Brock makes it to third. Glenn Seaton is fourth, followed then by Graham Crosby. The next is John Harvey. Tim Slako, a good start too. Jim Richards has made a good one in the JVS BMW. And Dick Johnson is back behind them. 74, the Mazda at the tail of the field as they head down to Cold Corner for the first time.
Bow's only having his fourth run in the Volvo. Now Brock goes through into second place. So it's Fury from Peter Brock and then John Bow. Behind him, Glenn Seaton, Graham Crosby and John Harvey. And I think considering his lack of experience in this car, Bow has been sensational. Now he tucks in behind the Commodore. Will the Volvo be quicker in a straight line? We'll see what happens when they crest the rise and down the other side. The Commodore extremely strong under brakes. So it's Nissan from Commodore, then Volvo, then yet another Nissan and a Commodore of Graham Crosby. Coming through to end lap number 1. We'll see what their standing lap time is. And Fury crosses the line in 1 minute and 7 seconds.
And a very poor start, as Gary was about to say, from Robbie Francevic in car number 10. Keeping in mind that Robbie started well down the list from position number 7 today, and he'll have to do it the hard way after a poor start towards the S's. Here's our race leader, George Fury in the Nissan Skyline, the Peter Jackson entry. Peter Brock in second. John Bow, pole sitter, is in third, car number 4. The next one is Glenn Seaton in the second of the Nissan Skylines.
Bow is the reigning Australian Formula 1 champion, as Mike said before, pole position here last year in a Formula 1 car, this year in a touring car, and he's doing a marvellous job in third. But look at Brock. Closes under brakes on George Fury as they come down to corner. It was about 3, maybe even 4 years ago when I was here when Brock, Fury and Moffat had a sensational battle down at that corner, and Brock came off second best, but this time he's well positioned to try and get Fury as they come across the top of the rise. Bow gets in there as well, and now Brock for a run on the inside. He blew it a couple of days ago. Can he get it right this time? Brock to the lead.
And a good pass here from Brock. Gets it out wide though, and Fury looks down the inside as they come across the strike. Fury lets him go. Bow sits in behind them in third. Then about 3 car lengths back to Glenn Seaton, Graham Crosby, John Harvey, a few back then to Richards, Johnson, then Robbie Francevic, Slako, Tony Longhurst, Colin Bond and Graham Hooley.
2 laps out of 40 run and Brock is in front.
This is the good turbo scrap with George Fury and John Bow. Bow's seen Brock go past him. And so too is George Fury. So Brock is off and running in the same form as Adelaide last weekend.
Gee, the inside wheel of the Volvo that time coming through the left-hander was well off the ground. You may recall that last weekend Bow was up at the head of the grid when the flag dropped and shot away and was up there for a while really rocking along and disappeared. He went off the end of the straight down there apparently, so he hopes to make a little better fist of it this time, but there wasn't a problem with the car. This weekend he's really come to terms with it, and now in behind George Fury.
The Fury sits in second. The challenge, just a little peep-a-boo that time from John Bow, pulled out.
Graham Crosby's up into fourth.
He's made up a spot at the Commodore, so they're looking pretty good at this stage. They come out of Yokohama Corner down Mobile Straight, and it's appropriate. 05, Peter Brock leads the parade from George Fury, John Bow and Graham Crosby.
Remember last weekend the 2 Nissans had problems once again. They had a brilliant run at the start of the championship season, but they came unstuck last weekend trying experimental pistons. They've gone back to the old ones again this weekend. They've had to rebuild 2 engines in between times, and Fury working hard at the moment to keep John Bow out of the way. Meanwhile, Brock opens up just a slight gap, and you notice that time again John Bow's car getting the inside front wheel well off the ground.
To Cold Corner. It's our race leader, Peter Brock, 05, the Mobile Commodore. Drops into the right-hander. And the scrap for second is quite good. George Fury and John Bow.
I just had a hint there in the background of a good scrap as well. I think it is Seaton and Crosby having a good battle for 4th and 5th, and John Harvey mixed in there as well. In fact, Crosby now through to 4th. Watch John Bow though under brakes.
Thought about it. They come out of Yokohama Corner. George checking the mirrors. Not going to change. There's a Swedish V right behind you.
They both need to check the mirrors because Crosby is bridging the gap on them, and there goes Bow through on the inside and moves up to second spot.
See whether Bow can now pick up Peter Brock as they work out of Castrol Corner up now to the S's and towards the left-hander at BP. So John Bow, the man on the move.
Brock went for his qualifying setup in the second session of practice yesterday. He spent about 10 or 15 minutes in that kind of car trim and then went back to the race setup to make sure the car was right for today. They're using their 17-inch Momo wheels and Bridgestone tyres again this weekend, and the car seems to be working very well on tyres. Bow in second position. He's on Dunlop radials. Fury using the same type of rubber. And this, of course, is the newer of the two Volvos in the country, and there's Graham Crosby in the background. So it's Brock, then Bow, then Fury, as they come through the right-hander and coming down the pit straight once again, and there's Crosby back in fourth, and behind him Seaton, and then John Harvey. On the Castrol scoreboard, it's Peter Brock leading in the Commodore from John Bow, and in third place, George Fury.
Welcome back to Wanneroo Park. Peter Brock in 05 still leads round 5 of the National Touring Car title, but John Bow is glued to the tail of the Mobile Commodore and making life fairly uncomfortable for Peter Perfect. They head up to the left-hander at BP. Bow pulled out only a few seconds ago just to let Peter know he was ready to... And Rocky closed the gap very effectively on him. We'll see how much grunt the Turbo Volvo has on the other side of the hill. The right-hander now at Cold Corner. And this is where Francevic's team partner, John Bow, should be able to make up the ground. Watch this, the acceleration as he pulls up. Sets in behind, Brock changing direction, going to make life a little uncomfortable. If you want to pass, you have to go around the outside. That's okay in itself, except there's a sand trap in this particular corner. Out of the bend. Down Mobile straight. Wait for John Bow to make his move to the inside. Peter Brock covers it and goes in a bit deeper this time. I think John Bow will be loving every moment of this.
This is an intriguing battle. Bow is noted for being a real thinker at the wheel, and he's working away on Peter Brock at the moment, trying to go under, over, any way that he can, and trying to unsettle Peter Brock as he comes through the Jackelli S's. The car gets light now. He has to make a clean fist of this left hand, uphill, positive camber corner, a very hard piece of road to negotiate. Brock does it brilliantly, like the master that he is, and still has John Bow in second place. I've got the clocks on them. We'll see what sort of flying lap time they're doing. And meanwhile, we've got George Fury in third and Crosby about 1.5 seconds down on the leaders.
Once again out of Cold Corner, tucking in on the inside, looking for a good run and a clean run up the straight is John Bow, and I think he might have it this time. Pulls up door handle to door handle over the crest and comes down, and he has now got the lead and the run for the next turn. There's no sense there carrying on because the turn tightens up considerably. Okay, Bow comes out of there. Rocky very close indeed to him, and Bow moves to the inside this time as Rocky comes down the outside with George Fury still fairly close.
A long way off their qualifying pace. The lap time 64.3 seconds, bearing in mind Bow did it with a 61.9 in practice.
Now it's time to be harassed. So Rocky gets onto the tail of the Volvo. Coming through BP and heading up the hill once again. This is the scrap of the race so far. Down to Cold Corner.
Here's Brock about to give Bow some of his own medicine, applying the pressure right on the tailpipe of the Volvo. On the sweeping right-hand corner they come. Head up for the crest of the hill. It's on the long run back down towards the main straight. This is where Bow pulled off the passing manoeuvre. It's pretty well clear this time. Takes the corner nice and cleanly. By gee, George Fury has not let these two get away from him 1 inch. He's parked right in behind. 10 laps down. Crosby and Glenn Seaton not all that far away from the leading trio. Then John Harvey, Jim Richards, Robbie Francevic and Dick Johnson. That's the order. They've broken well clear of the balance of the field, including Tim Slako, Colin Bond and Tony Longhurst.
There's George Fury on the exit to BP corner.
To give you some idea of the sorts of stresses that go through this little 4-cylinder turbo, the turbo in the car at the moment, when it's running at about 6.6, that's 1,000 RPM per minute at the crankshaft, the turbo's doing 160,000 revolutions a minute, the exhaust gas temperature about 750 degrees C. So it's an entirely different technology in the case of the Nissan and the Volvo as opposed to the V8 of the Commodore. And look now as Fury gets close to the back of Brock while Bow sprints away.
Here's the Aubrey Farmer down on the inside in car number 30. The Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline getting closer all the time to Peter Brock. Nice tight line through that corner. Rocky checking out the mirrors and a look over the shoulder. It really is something to watch at the wheel, Peter Brock.
His car control is sensational. And he's done so many more kilometres than everybody else in this race in the first 3 or 4 months of this year by virtue of his campaign in the European Touring Car Championship.
They haven't seen a PJ Nissan yet in Europe. That should be sensational.
And there is talk of that next year as well. One of the other interesting things that's happening in the Nissan camp is that next year their car becomes a 6-cylinder turbo, so they redevelop all over again. So we only see this car for 1 year, and now Fury well and truly online to make a manoeuvre here. He comes out from behind Brock. He'll be side by side as they come over the top of the hill, and this will be very interesting. Brock is traditionally good under brakes down here, but Fury has a nice line and elbows him out the way. 0.5 goes back to third. Can he come back through on the inside? He's done a nice job of it. The two of them almost rubbing mirrors as they come down the pit straight in front of our commentary box, and it'll be Brock who has the line for the next turn. And can the former Australian rally champion argue with that?
Nope. That was fantastic manoeuvring on the part of Peter Brock. And also George.
George is going to have another go.
I think George is probably doing it just a little bit easier at this stage, as Peter Brock finds himself under a lot of pressure. Bauer, as you can see, is running away with this one.
Both the Commodore and the Nissan having a real slide that time as they came across the top of the S's. Very evenly matched cars. Yesterday, 61.97s for both of these cars.
Evenly matched, but the wear and tear is going to be more important than Brock's tyres, I think.
Here we go for the replay of the previous incident once more. It's now Fury again on the inside. Will he get Brock? Again, it's a nice line.
He'll get him, but will Brock get him back coming out of the corner?
He'll have to try the manoeuvre again.
Yes, he's trying it. Here we go.
George is a wake-up and tries to cover his tracks a bit better, and he does it very nicely. So it's Brock on the outside this time.
Turbo 1-2, Johnny Bow up front. George Fury in second place. Brock now third.
Exit through BP corner and work their way now towards the S's. So George Fury will try now, and he's clear of Peter Brock, to see what ground he can make up on John Bow.
Well, Brock is really copping it, isn't he? First from Bow, then from Fury, and I'll tell you what, Graham Crosby is not all that far away either.
Heading down to Kolb corner. Fury in car number 30. There's the gap, it's opening. Let's check the Castrol scoreboard. John Bow for Volvo leads round 5. Fury is in second spot and Brocky is third. The battle for fourth in the Australian Touring Car Championship between Graham Crosby and Glenn Seaton. Seaton goes in, clips the corner on the way in, but Crosby was already skating, as he still is, coming out of the turn and heading up to the S's. So he has some problems, I believe.
I think there's a problem with the Crosby car. That time down pit straight, it was wobbling all over. Is it a deflating
rear tyre?
Right. Very bad luck for Crosby. So Seaton now goes ahead there in car number 15 and really has a clear road ahead of him to try and do something about his nearest rival. So Crosby very, very unlucky, and you only have to drop a wheel off the edge here and you can be in all sorts of strife.
There's Glenn Seaton heading up to the top of the hill yet again. He's dropped Crosby off the challenge. Crosby obviously will be headed to the pits. There's the scrap just ahead with Peter Brock. So Seaton is gaining on Brock at this stage.
Here's Brock. There's the gap back to Seaton. John Bow really opening up a gap now. 4.3 seconds back to George Fury. And the turbo's back with strength this weekend. And Seaton turning 21 today. So it's been a fine job in qualifying. And now what looks to be a fine job in the race for Cinder. And the news is, of course, that Crosby is in the pits. Now Seaton coming up onto the back of Simon Emmeling's BMW 635, the car that he ran last year at the James Hardy 1000 at Bathurst with Trevor Hine. Seaton through clearly and cleanly.
There's trouble
Crosby.
for Graham Crosby.
He'll be bitterly disappointed with that because he qualified brilliantly and picked up an extra sponsor during the week, by the way, Castrol.
Quick wheel change.
Joins the race once more. The important thing about Group A touring car racing is that points are scored right back to 20th position, so Crosby realises that, knows that at the end of the championship of 86, the extra points that he might generate with a minor placing here could be well worthwhile. Seaton, car 15. Working slowly closer to the back of Peter Brock's car. I've got the clock on them at the moment, and I'll give you that gap in just a couple of ticks. It is now 2.5 seconds between Brock and Seaton, so that gap is closing a little. And then further back behind those drivers, back in the pack here, Colin Bond, and he's having a sensational battle with Tony Longhurst, who in the 325 BMW is running second in this year's Touring Car Championship fight.
Just goes to show what consistency will do for you.
You have to get those points on the board. Colin Bond, of course, had the problem yesterday with the oil filter blowing off.
Yeah.
Gary told you about that before and how they rectified it, rather unusual. But Bondy really looking forward to getting the Alfa 75, of course, in the not-too-distant future to make him and Alfa Romeo outright contenders in touring car racing again around Australia. So Francevic leading the championship with 110 points. Longhurst has 68, Fury 54, Harvey 48 and Crosby 46. And Tony Longhurst has done a very consistent and good job. And incidentally, he also leads the Better Break Series at Amaroo Park as well.
He's really been the quiet achiever all season, Tony Longhurst, doing a great job for Frank Gardner and the JPS team.
These cars are what we call under 2.5 litre class cars, which we call play, which means that there is a points bias in their favour. When they have an outright higher result than an equivalent car of bigger capacity, they are awarded more points. And as a result of that, Tony Longhurst has done well in the championship and now moves through on the inside of Colin Bond in a very smooth braking manoeuvre and goes through on the inside. Can Bond come back on the inside of him in turn? I think he has. Bond, of course, like George Fury, a former Australian rally champion, Australian touring car champion and a winner of the James Hardy. He's got some experience on side, and now Bond goes through again on the inside.
They've had a great scrap since the race started. Robbie Francevic, meantime, is continuing his charge back through the pack. And here he is sitting in behind Jim Richards at this stage, which would put him seventh. Also 6th or 7th on the road.
And we've covered 20 laps, Mark, in the 40-lap race here today, the Motorcraft 100 at Wanneroo.
Look at Francevic here. Gee, there's some manoeuvres made on this corner.
Well, Jim's not giving up without a fight. They come out of Yokohama corner, and Robbie Francevic really playing the Nicky Lauda.
And how things change in a week, and for that matter, a season. Richards here last year, pole, the man that won last year, and on this occasion was back in about 8th or 9th position on the grid for the 86 race. The BMW, Mike, and you've seen this, particularly a few weeks ago at Monza, are still maintaining very competitive times over there, and they're a very consistent vehicle. I should think that when we get to the endurance end of the season, they'll still be a real force to be reckoned with.
I agree wholeheartedly, and looking ahead to 1987 with what they have on the drawing board as well, they're going to be back there and leading the pack as Jim Richards did throughout 1985 on his way to winning the National Touring Car title. But today, that poor start from Robbie Francevic, he's given John Bowe, his team partner, an absolute dream run to the checkered flag. And unless 4 or 5 cars fall out, you can't see Robbie doing an Adelaide job here in the West this afternoon. Down to Yokohama corner. They're not that far back behind John Harvey, I believe. So there's John Harvey just ahead of them in the second of the Mobile Commodore cars, number 3.
And John, of course, also carrying Sevens race cam this weekend as Francevic now makes a move on the defending Australian touring car champion who fights all the way and does not give an inch. And I think he's held his position. That was a fine piece of driving, but now Francevic has the line for the crest of the S's, and Francevic goes through and takes one more position away from Jim Richards.
Coming out of BP and heading to the top part of the hill.
Francevic's doing it again. He's moving through the field, but he's given an enormous lead to his teammate John Bowe.
So the Australian Touring Car Championship round 5. John Bowe, Tasmania leads. George Fury of Albury is second, and Melbourne's Peter Brock is third.
Bad news for the mobile dealer team here at Wanneroo. Peter Brock was third on the track, not anymore. In the pits, trouble with tyres, and they're under the bonnet as well, so obviously there are a couple of things amiss with the 05 car. Brock not looking very happy at all. He had a battle on his hands as it was with the turbos, and of course John Bower continues to hold a substantial lead in this fifth round of the Touring Car Championship, with George Fury holding down second place in the Nissan, and Brock no longer third, so it's Nissan second and third, because Glenn Seaton now will be in third spot on the racetrack.
Well, how things can change given just a matter of a minute. Brock was dropping back off the pace just a little, has decided to come into the pits. So Brock is in there. That's ruined any chance whatsoever that Peter Perfect had of winning today's round. The door is open, still sits in the car, but there goes the race for Peter Brock. Robbie Francevic makes it to fifth, and Dick Johnson is still out on the racetrack in car number 17. We haven't had an opportunity to catch up with our friend Dick today.
In seventh place on the racetrack. We haven't sighted too much of Dick. The competition's been pretty hot up front.
But Dick, of course, is carrying our race cam, and he heads out of BP corner. And there he is, the man of the moment in the cockpit. Good afternoon, Dick Johnson. Give him a chance to get through this corner and work to the top of the hill, where we'll have an opportunity to talk to him.
Now we've got a bit more space and a little bit more time. Dick Johnson, how's it going? Oh, I forgot to plug in. That's better.
Okay, Dick, Mike Raymond, can you hear us now?
Obviously not. Dick's having a little trouble with
Charlie,
reception.
what are you doing?
Well, we'll get the problem sorted out. We particularly want to get it sorted out because we've got somebody here that is very interested in Dick Johnson's progress this afternoon, because I can tell you now that Dick was out working hard on the winches of the likely Australian America's Cup defender, Kookaburra, off Fremantle yesterday with skipper Ian Murray, and Ian Murray has joined us in our commentary position here at Wanneroo. I didn't realise you had such a keen interest in the race cars as well, Ian.
A long-time hobby, Gary. It goes back to the days when sailing was less time-consuming.
You'd probably appreciate a day off, Ian, to come and join us this afternoon, watching some of the top touring car drivers in the nation.
It's a good opportunity to get away from the boats and see, and get out here in the other suburbs of Perth and see the cars and the engineering and what other people do in the world. Yeah.
Listen, have you recruited Dick Johnson onto the crew of Kookaburra?
He put a good effort in on the winches yesterday, and he knows what to do with the steering wheel as well.
Bow, the leader, is in the pits. John Bow is in. Let's go down to Neil Crompton.
We'll go, yes, down in the pits there at the moment. John Bower, the man that did brilliantly to take pole position and, of course, led the race. And we'll just let him get his helmet off, but they're pushing the Volvo away at the moment. And I guess, John Bower, you're a very disappointed man. Does John Shepherd know what the problem is at the moment?
I don't know, mate. It went off. The engine went off, and I reckon we maybe had the wrong grade of plugs in it or something for the... It's a Swedish engine, and we don't know much about it, and it went off and it just died altogether. It's like it cooked the plugs or something, I don't know. It just hasn't got any fire though.
There's been some strange engine management system problems with the car, and trying to get the ignition right has been a bit of a worry.
The only problem is that we really don't know that much about it at the moment. You know, we didn't get any instructions with it or anything, so it's done a remarkable job, really. It just pisses me off that I was stroking along pretty easy.
Well, you've done the job so far. We need to now do the second half of the race, and you're a winner. Thank you, John Bower. Back to you, Mike Raymond.
Thank you, Neil Crompton. Yes, what cheeses me off. Anyway, we pick up the race leader, car number 30. That's the Albury farmer, George Fury. Has been sitting back there in second most of the day. Now takes over the lead.
And this ends a 1-2.
And, of course, Glenn Seaton has now moved into second spot with John Harvey in third and Robbie Francevic in fourth.
And Francevic is getting closer all the time. There's 12 laps to go. You know, he could do it again.
Surely we couldn't have a repeat of Adelaide where they dropped out like flies and Robbie came storming from the clouds to pick up the pieces. But George Fury, who would like a win here today, considering the problems that they had last week at Adelaide with the two Skylines not finishing. They're running strongly here at Wanneroo. 1-2. Can't do much better than that.
That's Graham Crosby just up ahead of George Fury, but of course Crosby is a lap down, having had to come in to the pits for a tyre change. Let's go back to the pits because Neil Crompton's got some more information for us.
Thanks very much, Wilco. It is busy down here at the moment. I'm earning my quids. With me is Tony DiGennaro, the team manager for the Holden Dealer team. Your man was in the pits very early. What was the problem with Peter Brock?
He had a fractured wire on the distributor.
You guys must have been walking under ladders in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's right.
The car appears to sing a little as it went by that time too. That's still the same problem?
Could be. We're not sure, but we just sent him out and get on with it and try and finish the race. Without losing any more time than absolutely necessary.
Thanks, Tony. Better luck for Service Paradise. So 2 of the leading contenders out of round 5. Here's Mike again.
Thank you, Neil Crompton. Well, Robbie Francevic, car number 10, in 4th place, and the man in front of him is the man running in 3rd, and that is John Harvey in the number 3 Mobile Commodore.
Well, Francevic in the turbocharged Volvo, and by G turbocharging has revolutionised touring car racing here in Australia. What are you doing to revolutionise America's Cup racing, Ian Murray?
Well, unfortunately we can't turbocharge, but it's a matter of wing keelage. That's really been the major change in 12 metres over the years, and it started with Australia too, and it's going on from there.
There's a great scrap continuing. John Harvey holding down 3rd and Salvage and Sunpride for the Mobile Dealer team here at the Wanneroo Shootout in the West. But the man behind him is the Australian Touring Car Championship Series leader, Robbie Francevic, and he wants to get on with the job. They drop over Barbagello Bend and head down now to Cold Corner. Harvey doing a great job here in 3, but Francevic on the inside takes the inside initiative and comes out of the bend, leaving not too much room there, but still that's racing. So Robbie Francevic comes from the back of the field back to 3rd. His championship hopes are still alive.
And 10 laps remaining, so there's time for him to do it yet. Fury leads, Seaton 2nd, Francevic 3rd, then Harvey.
Harvey coming back just to put some pressure on Robbie Francevic through Yokohama Corner. And their dice continues with Francevic to 3rd. Here's the West's pink treat, or 2 of them actually, Graham Hooley and Tim Slako. Slako in number 96, the Alfa Barbagello cars, 96 FM entry, and right behind him, Graham Hooley. 2 of the drivers that Neil Crompton spoke to earlier today, and I tell you what, Tim Slako's throwing that Rover around. Looks like George Fury coming up to put a lap on those 2 cars as they make their way to the bottom bend.
West Australian hopes here this afternoon, and doing it pretty well. The car hasn't had all that many outings in recent months. As he explained earlier when talking to Neil Crompton, the expense is pretty substantial. The leaders giving him the go-by.
Francevic, number 96, Graham Hooley behind him, but Fury is well and truly clear in the Australian Touring Car Championship round. 15, Glenn Seaton involved in that little dust-up.
It is all over the place, that Rover.
Maybe he's run out of tyres, who knows. Here's Hooley doing a very brave one around the outside, trying to catch him up as they exit that corner and work their way up now to the S's.
They are both getting very skatey, those 2 West Australian entries. And Hooley, who has made a couple of trips across, he did run at Adelaide, had awful tyre problems there. And we've seen him in one appearance, I think, at Amaroo Park. I don't know where he's turning right to. If he turns right there, he'll end up up to his eyebrows in sand. So the 2 WA contenders pretty well back in the pack, but having a fair scrap between themselves. Pretty good dicing, a bit like some of the stuff we've seen off the coast of Fremantle recently, Ian Murray.
Unfortunately, there's been a fair bit of scrapping out there and a few prangs and dents, and we still need to go to the panel beaters as well, but our tyres don't go off.
You don't generate quite the same speed, though?
Not quite the same speed, 10 knots as us.
And $3 million to do it?
A lot more than that.
This battle continues, Gary, for the minor placings between Slako and Hooley. Tremendous battle for supremacy as far as the Sandgroves are concerned. And at the moment, of course, it is still George Fury who leads the field quite comfortably. And what a shame it was for John Bow to come unstuck there with a problem with his car. Behind Fury, we've got the Nissan of Glenn Seaton, and we're on lap 32, so about 8 laps remaining. So the Nissan's really looking good after the demise of those cars last weekend. Let's have a look at the Castrol scoreboard and recap the top 3. And the leader, George Fury, car number 30. Behind him, his teammate Glenn Seaton, and 3rd, Kiwi Robbie Francevic.
Back at Wanneroo with 5 laps remaining in the Motorcraft 100, 5th round of the Australian Touring Car Championship. Robbie Francevic holding down 3rd place and closing on 2nd place getter Glenn Seaton, and Johnny Harvey still not all that far away behind Francevic. And up front, of course, George Fury continues to lead the race, about a half lap, I would say now, on Francevic. But Francevic didn't qualify the best, got shuffled back a bit at the start. He was back in 10th and 11th place after they'd gone a couple of laps. Slowly but surely, as others have dropped out and he's made his way up through the field, he's now battling on for 2nd. And of course, he's the man that's won 3 out of the 4 rounds of the championship decided so far and finished 2nd to George Fury at the other round at Sandown.
It's a big gap. They walk on. Look, Harvey's in trouble. Now, that puts both of the dealer team cars in strife.
Did not see it happen.
Goodness me, how unlucky are they this weekend and the weekend before. Harvey had problems last weekend, you'll recall, with brakes and forever locking up brakes coming into that very tricky left-hander at Adelaide. They've been experimenting with different pads over the last few weeks and they haven't been entirely happy. So John Harvey out of round 5, and that puts both the mobile cars behind the 8 ball. Meanwhile, the leader George Fury continues to wheel away from the pack. His teammate Glenn Seaton in 2nd. I've got the watch at the moment on the gap between Seaton and Francevic. That's the curious one, although as I glance out the commentary box at the moment, it appears to be almost half a lap, Wilco.
Oh, yes, it is. And Fury is coming up pretty quickly on Graham Crosby. But Crosby, remember, is a lap down, although he's not going to make it easy for Fury to get by, just the pure competitive spirit.
Isn't it amazing how these races change so very quickly? Last weekend it settled down about 10 or 12 laps into the race. One would have thought you could safely predict a Peter Brock win, and now again it changes this weekend just like it did last weekend.
Ian Murray, tell me, you might be doing 10 or 12 knots on Kookaburra, but is the thinking as frantic as it has to be in this motor racing situation?
It's more of a calculated thing. It's like a game of chess and the moves are much slower, of course, but you have to think so many more moves ahead, I think. I think that's probably the difference.
Do you get second chances, though, if you make a mistake?
You don't get second chances. That's the same.
It's the same.
That's exactly the same.
I've got the clock on the gap between Fury and Seaton. That gap at this stage is now 15.2 seconds.
One last question, Ian. The new Kookaburra 3, how's it coming? When will we see it? How good's it going to be?
She's coming along well. They're in the process of what we call plating the boat. That is putting the outside aluminium skins over the frames of the boats, and we'd expect to have a sailing in early August.
Ian Murray, skipper of Kookaburra, leading contender to defend the America's Cup for Australia. We thank him for joining us this afternoon. Let's get back to the serious business on track.
Incidentally, the gap between Seaton and Francevic is now 17.05 seconds. So it's 15 from 1st to 2nd, a further 17 from 2nd to 3rd. And will anything unusual now happening in the closing stages of this 40-lap race? We are, let me see, just on 3.5 laps to go, I think, Wilco. They're on lap 37.
Yep.
So anything can happen, and about 35 odd seconds separates the first 3 runners.
There's the man that's done it all, car number 30, George Fury in the Nissan Skyline. Comes out through the S's. Very clean, concise lines through there and heads up to the top of the hill.
Fury, of course, the driver who put his car on pole position for the first 3 rounds of the championship. Back at Amaroo Park for round 1, for Symmons Plains round 2, for Sandown round 3. His second encounter in the car, he picked up a 2nd place. In his 3rd run, he picked up a win, which was just a tremendous drive from Fury and great preparation by the Peter Jackson Nissan team to get a brand new car competitive so quick.
The interesting thing is, Neil, I think a lot of people expected the race times, the lap times, to be a little bit faster today.
Well, they really went for broke yesterday. That was the reason I spoke to Brock at the start of the race. And I don't think I've ever seen such an intense battle between teams. They really rolled out the expensive rubber. Both of the turbo users, the Nissan and the Volvo team, disclaim that they use qualifying boost in their engines, but by gee, the cars were flying yesterday. They were working very hard. The last lap board is out, incidentally, for George Fury, so less than 2.41 kilometres now for him before he takes his 2nd championship win this season.
So he heads over through the S's up to the top of the hill. George Fury, race leader, and that will help his championship points tally.
It will, but of course Francevic is back in 3rd place. It's a Class B car. He will get 23 points for that and further extend his tally. and he would move on to 133 points. But Fury all the time starting to close the gap, and there's still, of course, 5 rounds to go when the checkered flag drops in around about 30 or 40 seconds for this race.
Coming up to the top of the hill for the final time, George Fury and the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline leading a 1-2 for the team here today in round 5 at Wanneroo Park. Coming down to Yokohama Corner for the final time, and the Albury Farmer is going to reap a reward in round number 5. He comes out of the bend, checkered flag will be at the ready, and George Fury tastes victory in round 5 of the National Touring Car title, the Motorcraft 100 from Wanneroo Park in Western Australia. Second place will go to his teammate Glenn Seaton in car number 15.
Nice present for him.
Who goes across the line now. And to finish third in the race will be Robbie Francevic in car number 10.